Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight on how colleges recruit in track. My guest today is Bob Hamer, and he's the head coach at Rider University. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So, Bob, I usually ask my guests where they went to college. So where did you go to school?
I'm a Penn State grad. So, I'm a Pennsylvania native, so it was one of those, I guess, somewhat natural progressions of a lot of people. But I was one of those guys that grew up that, when I was going through the college process, Penn State wasn't my first choice because a lot of kids from my high school went there, and I wanted to kind of do something different. So I was recruited by a lot of different schools, but I just kept coming back that it was the right fit for me. It fit the things that I was looking for in a college, which was, number one, a major that matched what I was looking for academically.
Right.
Number two, a program where I thought I could compete in a program that could compete at a very high level, NCAA level kind of program, and a program that developed athletes. I looked at a lot of, a lot of other schools and looked at what times their athletes had run, and if they were similar to mine, what they ended up doing when they got to college. And, I would either throw that name into a hopper if it was a school that developed guys, or if it was one that didn't, I would kind of eliminate them. Yeah. And I kept coming back to Penn State, and when I made my visit there, I just really felt comfortable with the coach and comfortable with the athletes on the team. And I ended up choosing very wisely. It was a great experience.
Now, did you start as early as freshman year for track, or did you start senior year for track?
Yeah, I mean, at the college level, I was someone who was able to, we don't really have starting positions, but I was able to be a contributing member of the team from the beginning. I was really lucky. Part of the reason was the cross country team my freshman year had turned over a lot, where they had a lot of graduating seniors. So we were a young recruiting class, very, very large recruiting class, a very young team. So I had a lot of opportunity to compete, which was great. We messed up a few times out there because we didn't have quite the experience, but I think it was great down the road because it gave me a lot of opportunity and exposure and to compete at a very high level at a very young age. So we were able to grow and develop, which was great.
Now, in high school, did you start looking at colleges junior year, sophomore year, or was it senior year when you started looking?
Yeah, really not until the end of my junior year. I got a few letters from some colleges, so it started to get on my radar. But really not until the beginning of my senior year it became something really serious. I think things were much different back then. We're talking 25 years ago, where we didn't have the technology that we have now. We didn't have the resources. The process was, you went down and met with your guidance counselor and you typed in a bunch of stuff into this antiquated program, and it spit out a bunch of perforated sheets of paper, and you kind of matched up your priorities with the priorities of a school. And I had gotten a lot of letters from some schools around the country, which was really exciting, and some schools that I explored and I was interested in. But in the end, when I set up my list of priorities, which is something I always recommend to young people, is come up with the priorities that are your priorities. And I came back to Penn State.
So now, now you graduate from Penn State University, how did you become the head coach at Rider University?
It's a great question.
Now, is this men's and women's?
Yes,
track?
I coach the men and women. Yes.
Okay. So how do you go from there, from graduating to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, I have a finance degree with a business law minor, and I thought I was going to be Mr. Wall Street investment banker guy. And when I graduated, I kind of was having second thoughts about that, and I was really intrigued about athletics. So I actually went to grad school at Westchester in Pennsylvania with the idea that I have a business administration or a sports administration degree, with the idea that maybe I'd get in athletic administration. And while I was there, my future mother-in-law worked with someone who had her son's high school needed a coach and inquired about it. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll give it a shot. And I started coaching high school for a couple of years, and I kind of got the bug that maybe this is something I really, really like, and maybe it's something I could make a career out of and be successful. And from there, I was an assistant at St. Joe's for 4 years in Philly, and it was great. It was a great school, great opportunity. I worked for a great guy, Mike Lavin. He did a tremendous job, and really being a great mentor for me and learning what it takes to be a coach at this level, and there's not just a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. My experiences were I had a really great high school program, I had a really great college program, but it was really great to see a different experience.
Yeah.
And after that, and I loved it there. The problem was it was part-time, and there wasn't really much chance for me to grow. Sure. And a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, there's an opportunity for you at Rider. What do you think?" And I took advantage of it. I interviewed. The guy gave me an opportunity, and so I was an assistant coach, just in charge of cross country and the distance events for 2 years. And then he moved on, so then we had another guy that was an assistant with me became the head coach. And I still coached the same events, but gave me a lot more responsibility. And then he moved on, and I was fortunate that my AD decided I was the right person to continue the program, and I got to be the head coach.
Wow, fantastic.
So I was really fortunate because there's not many of these jobs
Absolutely.
in the country, and the opportunity to coach, it was a dream, and it's a great career, and it's a great opportunity to influence young people, which is something that I enjoy every day.
Good. Now, let's get into track.
Yeah.
So a high school kid, a son or daughter of a parent, wants to go on to college to run track. What are the requirements to go on to college and run track at the college level?
Well, I think one of the great things about track specifically is there's a lot of schools that have it. And there's divisions 1, 2, and 3, obviously. In the Division 1 level, on the women's side, there's about 350 Division 1 programs. On the men's side, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 315 to 320. So there are a lot of opportunities out there, which I think is great. And there's also many different levels. You have what they call the Power 5 conferences, the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the SEC. And then you also have some mid-level programs like ourselves, like the MAC with Ryder. So that there's a lot of opportunities for different levels of athlete and to get a different experience based on your background. And one of the things that we provide is to give athletes an opportunity to compete at the Division I level that maybe they're overlooked by some of those Power 5 teams. And one of the things, one of our niche, so to speak, is to go out there and find an under the radar man or female that maybe hasn't had the opportunity to showcase, whether it's coaching or program or they're new to track. And we see that they have some skill and an opportunity to grow and develop. And I have a great staff that works really, really hard at not only recruiting great student athletes, but then also coaching and developing them. And that's the really great thing. And one of the things that we try to do really, really well is make that individual connection with the student athlete. We offer, Ryder kind of really hangs their hat on the idea of an individualized education where we're a small school, professors are very involved in what they do, and we try to fit the same kind of model into track and field where we have an individualized training program, an individualized experience, and hopefully we get athletes that are really passionate about Ryder and passionate about track, and they have like-minded people around them, so this just creates this environment where everybody's excited to be around and works really hard, and they get an opportunity to compete at a very high level.
Good. Now, is it specific times for track that you look for at the college level? Is it also grades that they need? What are some of the requirements that you look at?
Yeah, it's all that. Number one, we're looking to make sure that they're an athlete that has the talent and ability that can compete at our level. And track is challenging because there's 21 different events. In track, you go anywhere from where you're throwing a shot put or javelin to you're jumping over hurdles, or you're a distance person. You're running 25 laps around the track, which is crazy. But we all have different areas in each event. So we identify times, we identify distances and heights, and we also go out and we watch people compete. We'll go to the junior, we'll go to the state meets in the, Pennsylvania, Jersey. Sometimes we make it down to Maryland or Delaware, and we identify student athletes who we think have the talent. And then number two, academics is really key. At Ryder, it's unfortunate we don't have a tremendous amount of athletic scholarship money. So one of the ways that we make that up is finding students that are good students because we can get some academic aid as well. Right. But I also, if they're really good academically and they're good athletically, that's a lot of the pieces of the puzzle to make sure you have success. Because if they're going to be a struggle academically, we may spend a lot of energies, and we love to help them be successful academically, but that may take away from their ability to help us athletically as well. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it takes a lot of energy and a lot of support, and we may not always have the resources to do that.
Now, where do you recruit? Is it just in the Northeast? Is it all over the country, all over the world? How do you find these kids in all 21 of these
21 events? We're fortunate at Ryder that we are in New Jersey. And New Jersey is one of the top states in the country in track and field and cross country, as well as Pennsylvania, as well as New York. So you got three of the best states. Many of the big time schools come to these, Jersey State meet, the Pennsylvania State meet, New York State meet, and they recruit the top athletes. So we have a lot of athletes that we can get to fill our needs in those areas. And for the way we run our program, we try to be regionalized. We try to, I feel like I could draw a circle around and within a 2 to 3 hour radius, we can get enough athletes that can help us compete at a very high level. So we stick to that Jersey, obviously, Pennsylvania, New York, but we also go down as far south as, Maryland and Delaware. Once in a while we get some Virginia, but that's really where we stick. Once in a while we'll get someone from outside of that area. But for our program, for what we need in our sport, we're fortunate that we can fulfill it within that Northeast region, and that's where we really concentrate all of our recruiting on. And we're fortunate we get a lot of interest. The hardest part is making college affordable.
Now, is it a all year round sport where they have to do certain things as soon as they get to school? During the season, in the fall, in the spring? How does track work at the college level?
And it's kind of split into two different things. You have your distance athletes who run cross country and also run track, and they'll move in about 10 days before the start of school at the end of August, and they're in season all year round until mid-May, sometimes longer.
Wow.
And then, they take a couple weeks off and then they're training again over the summer to get ready for the season. If you're a track athlete, whether you're, a sprinter, hurler, jumper, or thrower, once we get into school, we can start doing a limited training schedule for the first month of the year, and then we get into our regular training schedule right about now in the beginning of October. So they're in season from October until May as well. They'll take maybe a little bit bigger break because their season is shifted over a little bit. But it is a year-round sport. I mean, it's good and it's bad. It's unfortunate in this world that we've become very specialized.
Yeah.
But I think track is kind of fun because we've taken athletes from other sports that are used to being athletic and different things, and we've kind of molded them all together into we like to call it the 3-ring circus at times if you've been to a track meet.
Now, is there a difference between the fall season and the spring season?
Yeah, in the fall for the track, just the track-specific kids, there's no competition. We'll do one meet in December within our normal schedule, but during the fall, they're just training. So they're just preparing for their events during the winter.
And do you do indoor track as well?
Yes, we do winter. So we get back right in first weekend in January, we start right back up again with meets. And that's our competitive schedule from January through May.
Wow. So now in the spring, how many events are you going to in the spring?
For the spring, the outdoor season, we usually have about 6 to 8 meets, depending on how good you are. If you make it to, we have about 6 or 7 meets up to our conference, and you can add meets if you qualify for championships and things like that. Like we have a ECAC IC4A championships, which Princeton perennial holds. That's like an Eastern Seaboard championship, so we'll go there quite a bit. We have athletes qualify for that, and then we have the NCAA rounds of regionals and NCAA finals. So we've been fortunate to have at least somebody qualify for the regional championships each year, and we just had last year, in fact, we had our first ever female NCAA finalist.
Wow.
Qualifier. She ran the steeplechase, and she ended up finishing ninth, and became a second-team All-American, which was really cool for us.
Now, and how many kids are on a team, both men and female?
Female combined this year, we have 115 on our roster, men and women combined. So we have a little bit more men. We have a little more than 70 men and just over 40 women.
Wow.
On the program. So we have a very large team. One of our philosophies at Ryder is to fill all the event groups. Try to cover every single event group area and have a total team concept, even though track's an individual sport.
Yeah.
However, we do come together in a team setting.
So finding all of those kids is what a task you have.
It's very, very time consuming. People ask, what do you do with your day? All you do is have practice, right? No, we have recruiting takes a lot of time. In fact, we have 3 kids on campus today that we're visiting, so we were meeting with their families, and that's part of the process, is bringing them on campus and sitting down with them and their families and getting a chance to know them. I mean, one of the things we try to do even in the process, I know some schools will do a kind of a group meeting kind of thing. We're more of the idea that we'd like to bring them in as individuals and sit down and have that one-on-one conversation and get to know them. Because the right fit is really, really important too. Just because they're interested in us doesn't mean we're interested in them as well, and we want to have the right fit. And that's a challenge, obviously, because we are trying to recruit numbers, because in order for us to be successful, we need a lot of numbers.
Yeah. Now, at the high school level with these students, do you see a lot of students utilizing private coaches? Do they run outside of the high school? Is it something different than a lot of the other sports that are out there?
Mm-hmm. I think our sport's still one of the ones, from what I can tell by talking to other coaches, is high schools are still the central focal point for them as far as training and coaching. There are some club coaches out there that are very, very good, and there are some athletes in the high school level that get some private coaching and some private instruction. You see it a little bit more in some of the like some of the field event specific, like pole vault is one of those ones, because it's difficult to find pole vault coaches and it's a dangerous event. So a lot of the high schools limit how they do it, so they're able to find some coaches out there, enterprising coaches out there, able to develop their own clubs. So they have some specific groups set up where the athletes can go and train with them. But we're not as much of a club program as soccer would be.
Yeah.
Really the high schools are the main competitive point, but there are a few kids here or there that you find in a club coach.
Now, do you see through the recruiting process, do you see a lot of the kids with aspirations that they want to go on the Olympic team or the USA team or something like that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, everybody has the dream of being on the Olympic team, and that's really tough. I mean, it's really tough, and we've had funny side stories. We've never had an Olympic track and field athlete, but we have a former track and field athlete at Rider. She was a highly accomplished thrower. She was actually on the bobsled, U.S. Olympic bobsled team last Winter Olympics. So she was one of the push athletes for her sled. So that was quite amazing that we did have an Olympian at Rider, and she was in an event that she didn't compete in college, but track helped her get there.
So now, grade wise, what do you look at grade wise, and what type of scholarships are available at Division I compared to, let's say, a Division III school?
Mm-hmm. For our perspective, academically, we're trying to find the best possible student we can find, because one, Rider's a very expensive school. We're about $52,000 if you just do room, board, tuition, and the fees that you have to pay. And we don't have the athletic scholarship money to make up for all that. So we try to be creative. So we try to recruit the best possible students. And we have some really great academic scholarships, which top out if you're one of the best students that we have. And that requires you to be a 1250 SAT. You're basically A's on everything on your transcript, really great classes. You could expect to get upwards of 24,000 in academic, which is a really great scholarship. And then you could go down to where you have a 3.0 and maybe you only have 1050 SATs, and you might be able to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 or 16,000. So those are the kind of ranges that we're looking for, because that helps us make Rider a very, very affordable option, or at least more affordable option for families. The challenge is that obviously every other school is looking for competing for those students, for the academic side of things, because everybody wants the best and the brightest students.
And compared to a large Division I school, what's the difference between that? They just a full athletic scholarship where it's paid, the whole tuition is paid, compared to a mid-major school like Rider University that can't fulfill the full tuition?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on how a school decides to spend the resources. For instance, in track and field, on the men's side, the NCAA sets a maximum allowable, how many scholarships you're allowed to have. So on the men's side, you're allowed just over 12 scholarships, like a 12.6, and on the women, you're allowed 18. We have much less than that, so it's difficult. But the thing with track is you're allowed to split things up. It's not like football or basketball where you have one scholarship you give to one kid, another scholarship to another. So we're able to split things up a little bit. So the challenge we have is, we try to put together a financial aid package that makes Rider affordable. Yeah. Unfortunately, at Rider, I can't make it free with my sport, because we need a lot of numbers. We could just say, hey, we want to just have distance runners and maybe some sprinters, and maybe we could pile a lot of money into that, but we want to have a full and complete team. So it's a challenge for us to make Rider affordable, and that's what makes the recruiting process very, very challenging for us, because we need numbers.
So now, what is your recruiting process? How do you go about finding these kids?
The number one way we do it is we'll pour over results from state meets and other high-level competitions, and we'll send letters out to prospective student athletes, and with the idea that hopefully we'll get some kind of response. We also get a lot of unsolicited emails and contacts from from student athletes. And once we collect that data, we start putting them in databases, and then I divvy up the recruiting based on the event coaches. So I have a different coach for each event group. So I have a sprint and hurdles coach, I have a throws coach, and I have a jumps coach, and I'll handle all the distance runners. And we split up the recruiting accordingly, and then we begin the process of contacting those student athletes, specifically the ones that we think could be a top level performer on our team. And then the next step is that usually happens. We're allowed to contact kids July 1st after their junior year. We can send them some emails and things prior to that, but we can't actually call them and have a conversation. And then we invite them to campus, usually during the summer, to maybe do a little meet and greet, get a chance to kind of tell them about our program. I can learn a bit more about them, and have them get a tour of campus and get a feel for what we're about. And then when we get into the fall, we usually try to bring them on campus for an official visit, so they get a chance, what I like to call, chance to see what it's like to be a student athlete. They can stay overnight, they can stay in the dorms, they have meals with the athletes on the team, they can go to some classes. If they would like to meet with an academic person on campus, if say you're a biology major, you want to meet with a bio professor, I can set you up with someone in the bio department, and they're more than happy to sit down and discuss the academic requirements and things like that.
Seems like a big difference between a school like Penn State that you went to compared to Rider. What are some of the differences that you've seen just by going to school, being a track runner at a school like Penn State compared to Rider University?
I mean, unfortunately, or fortunately for Penn State, or unfortunately for us, they have a lot more resources, so they're able to attract a higher level student athlete, and they're competing in the Big Ten, which is a much better conference than the MAC. The MAC is a great conference, but it's nowhere near the level of a Big Ten, where
so it depends on the student. It depends on the student what they're looking for.
Yeah, what they're looking for, and that's the great part about track and field. It's one of the great parts about Rider. We may not be the right fit for everybody, but we do fulfill a role for somebody out there, and my niche is always that we're passionate about track and field. We're willing to coach you up, and however great you can be, if you could be great, however great Anthony could be, we're going to make Anthony be as great as he can be. If Billy, we'll make Billy be as great, and we're not going to compare the two. We're just going to do whatever we can to make that kid great.
So being that these students, they're not fully formed at that point, they're still growing, they're still learning. What's the growth pattern that you've seen between the men and women at the college level? When did they really start peaking? Is it junior year of their college career? Or when does that usually start to happen?
It's a challenge. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody's on that different time frame based on their background. We get some athletes that come from a really great high school where they've had a really great coach and a really great program, and they can step right in off the bat and be a contributor. And then maybe they contribute a lot their freshman year, and their sophomore year they level out, and then their junior, senior year they become, that big time person you're looking for. And then we have others that we're totally surprised when they get here, and they all of a sudden they're just, they were underdeveloped, they weren't in a great situation, and they come to Rider, and they have all these talents that we didn't know about. And sometimes even we miss that, and we're pleasantly surprised. But generally what we're trying to do is give them the training and the guidance that they need, so by the time they're juniors and seniors, they're really big time competitors. But there are plenty of athletes that come in as freshmen and are really, really good, and they pleasantly surprise us, which is great.
So do you see, when you see some of these videotapes or you see them in person, are you looking for the type of form that they have? Is that what's something that you're looking for at the college level?
And different event groups, we're looking for different things. If we're looking for a hurdler in college, specifically for the men, the heights of the hurdles go up. So you want a guy that's tall. So someone who is successful at the high school level, if they're not very tall, if they're 5'8" like me, they're not going to be very good at the college level. So we have to look for it. We need to look for height. In the throws, for instance, we may be able to find somebody that doesn't have very good marks, but if you watch them compete, and if they're long and lean, we can't coach long and lean, but we can coach technique. And maybe if they need a little bit more technique and we see that they're athletic, then that's the athlete that we're going to target, because other schools may not be looking at them, and we may be the one person that's really showing them a lot of love. And if we feel like they're the right fit, then that's something that we look for. So, there is when you're watching them run, it's not just that's what's great, is it's not just black and white on what's on the time. We're looking for potential.
So there's a wide variety that you can actually see in track.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not one particular person. Like You have bigger people doing maybe shot put and things like that because they just have the weight to throw it further. Is that something that you look for?
Absolutely. And, we're looking for size. We can't coach size. We can make a guy bigger. We just can't make him taller. So if we got a big, long, lean, shot put guy, if we put some mass on him, that's definitely going to help.
So it really depends on what particular event they're doing at the college level. And that's what you're looking for.
Yes, actually, there's different characteristics for each event group, and that's what makes it fun and challenging. And sometimes we've even had kids that come in as one event group, and we find out they're better at a different event group, which is kind of
so it changes over time.
It can change over time. It's not you're not going to make a distance runner a thrower, but you can find a sprint person that maybe has a lot more chance to be effective as a jumper. They just didn't try it, so we'll try them out in a different event and find out that hey, they're actually pretty good at this. This could be their new event.
Good,
which is exciting.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show.
Okay.
And usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to parents out there that have sons or daughters that want to go on to college and run track at the college level?
I think the best piece of advice I can give them is, number one, do your research. There's the advantages now with technology make it so much easier than it was in the past. You have access to schools, you have access to web pages, you have access to information, results. Go out there and obviously take visits to schools, meet coaches, meet people. And maybe I'm somewhat biased because we're not a program where we always make it the cheapest or the most free, but I would definitely don't always jump at the first best offer that you get, because money doesn't always drive everything. In that same way in college it is as it is in life, and you want to pick the right place that's the right fit for you so that you have an opportunity to meet your goals. If running and academics is really, really important to you, pick the school that has the right academics. Pick the school that has the, where you see yourself growing and developing. You're going to be a lot happier. Maybe if it costs you a few more $1,000s or it costs you a little bit extra in loans, that experience will be a lot, you'll be rewarded with a better experience, and then down the road you're looking back going, all right, it's not so bad to write that loan check if it was something that was positive as opposed to something that was negative. I mean, still my best friends are the guys I ran with. In fact, I was just back at Penn State this past weekend for a football game and hung out with some of my friends. And we may not see each other at all that often, but when you do, that those are lifelong bonds, and it's something that's going to shape the rest of your life. And you want to look back on it in a hopefully a very, very positive manner, and be excited about your experience. And I know I was, and that's what drives me as a coach, is to make sure that I provide a wonderful experience for every single person that competes for us.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.